There's a great quote that says that advertising is the price you pay for being boring. Marketers have probably way more influence than we most of the time want to believe. Like, we are influence, and marketers have become so astute in psychological manipulation, if you will. I mean, that's a very harsh term, but that's the reality of what it is, right? We are being manipulated by the ads that we see, by the things that we hear, by the things we see when we're out and about, billboards and posters and things like that. We often believe that we're not susceptible to being persuaded by outside forces, and yet we are. All dreams come with a cost. The question is, are you willing to pay the price?
Wayne Mullins, a marketing pro who has coached over 20,000 marketers, crafted marketing books, and turbocharged a $600 million success story in 5 years.
I got reminded of this great marketing campaign from Puma when Pele was wearing the shoe. He just went on to the ground and he was just trying the shoe. And the cameras and the TVs were all focused on the shoe that he was wearing. And people at that time didn't realize that he was actually partnering up with Puma. And that was one of Puma's greatest marketing campaigns with Pele. This man has been married thrice and has at least 4 ex-girlfriends with 10 children with 3 different mothers.
Elon Musk.
Oh my God, how did you guess that? Guess the brand. The logo of this billion-dollar company was designed for just $35. What are some of the strategies that you see Elon Musk using to stay relevant and to stay on the headlines, which other people normally miss out?
Yeah, I would say number one is...
So while I was researching about you, I found out that before the Ugly Mug Marketing, you had another company, and while you had another company and you had seen like a great success financially, and people were asking you, how did you get that? And your answer was marketing. And later on, you did try to teach them about some of the marketing tricks, and that's how you came up with your Ugly Mug Marketing Agency. So I would like to ask you, like, what was that company about? Like, what kind of business it was, and what were the primary questions that people had? Like, what were they asking to you, and how did you help
Absolutely.
them?
So the previous company was a lawn and landscape company. So I live in Louisiana here in the United States, and the grass grows here for about 9 months out of the year because it's hot and humid for a long period of time here. And so I started that company and really grew that from scratch, just me on a lawnmower with a weed eater, and grew that into a sizable company where we had multiple crews out in the fields. We did probably about 90% commercial work. So we would, maintain the lawn and the landscape for restaurants, for office complexes, for, supermarkets, things like that. And really the course of that 3-year period, although I had a lawn care company, that was the quote unquote business, I viewed my role as the chief marketing officer. That's what I viewed my role as. And so it enabled me to really use that business, that experience, to help me hone my skills as a marketer, to really test things in the real world, right? It's easy to read things in a book. It's easy to read about, the latest diet or success principles or marketing tactics and strategies. But it's completely different when you take those things and you bring them into your actual life, into the real world, because the real world is going to give us immediate feedback. And if we're wise, we will take that feedback and we will make adjustments and make tweaks based on the feedback that we're getting.
So what were some of the questions that people at that time were asking you about marketing when you did not before starting the Ugly Mug Marketing?
Yeah, what's interesting about that is people weren't necessarily asking me about marketing. What they were asking me is, how are you growing your business so quickly? How did you go from, startup to being able to sell your company within 3 years? What did you do to do that? And so the question wasn't about marketing. The question was about this perceived success. So often in our lives, particularly if we're entrepreneurial, right? If we have a business mindset, we look around at other people and we observe the success that's taking place in their business or in their lives. And we often look for the shortcut, right? We want to know, how did they become successful, or how did they grow so rapidly? And when we do that, what we're doing is we're actually shortchanging ourselves. In other words, we're looking at the surface level. We're really not going a layer or two deeper to understand what enabled that growth or that success. And so the answer for me, when people came to me and said, what are you doing to grow so quickly? The answer was marketing. We were doing marketing in a completely different way. And we were doing marketing in a way that our competitors were simply unwilling to do.
That's interesting. So, in what way were you doing the marketing that enabled you to get such quick growth?
Yeah, it's so counterintuitive that, it's kind of even embarrassing to say. Often when we think about marketing, we think about all these complex things. We think about funnels. We think about social media. We think about, doing video, not doing video, doing great graphics. All these things come to mind, and we become overwhelmed. But if we step back for a minute and we realize that marketing is nothing more than a mix of human psychology and math. That's all marketing is. It's those two elements combined. And the whole goal of marketing is to move people closer to a purchasing decision, right? That's all we want to do through our ads, through our emails, through whatever it is that we're doing. We're just trying to move people closer to pulling out their wallet and handing us money. So when we think about that, when we step back and think about that, sometimes we'll discover that we don't want to do or need to do what everyone else in our market and in our industry is doing. As a matter of fact, I would argue that most of the time, you will get far more success from your marketing campaigns by looking at what your competitors are doing and then doing something completely different, something completely opposite. So that's a super long lead into the simple answer is we went to the customers that we wanted to serve. So these would be people that we didn't currently serve. These would be what we call prospects. And every single week, I would go to a local bakery that made donuts, and we would buy dozens and dozens of boxes of donuts. And then we'd put our logo across the top of those boxes. And then what we would do is we'd go, for example, to a restaurant. Maybe we wanted them to hire us to maintain their lawn, their landscape. So what we would do is we'd go in the morning before they got busy for the lunch rush, and we would go to the back door because the restaurant wasn't even open yet. And we would go in where all the people were prepping the food and getting ready everything for lunch. And we would bring those donuts. And we would just have conversations with real people, right? Not the manager, not the boss, not the owner, actual people on the team. We would just build relationships with those people. So here's the interesting that would happen. Fast forward a few months, the owner or the manager comes in and he realizes the lawn looks terrible, right? There's weeds all in the flower beds, which doesn't look good for people coming in the front door of the restaurant. So the manager or the owner would say to the people in the back, have y'all seen the lawn care people? Like the lawn's looking terrible. Have y'all seen them? And they would say, no, we haven't. But, there's this other company that comes by several times a month and they bring us donuts. Maybe you should give them a call. So what we were doing is we were creating what we would call evangelists inside of those companies. We were creating salespeople within those organizations that actually wanted to sell on our behalf. And they weren't paid by us other than a few sweet treats and goodies along the way.
Very inspiring story. And when you mentioned about the thing of going to people and talking with them and developing a connection with them, it reminded me of a podcast that I was listening to. And in the podcast, they're talking about how to find business ideas and how to start a business. So the guy was explaining, he gave an example of let's say you want to start a tree business, right? So whether it's a good idea or not, he was saying to his listeners that in order to do that, go to a place where it sells trees, like some small plants, or any fair that sells small plants, and observe what people are buying, and talk to the people, the salespeople who are selling the type of trees, all the types of trees or plants that they're selling, and try to gather customer first-hand customer data. Stand in front of the mall or stand in front of the fair that's happening, observe what kind of plant people are buying, talk with people, talk with the salesperson, and collect data. And based on the data, start your own tree or plant business. But this is a very tough job, standing in front of the shop and like noticing and talking with people. Many people have anxiety when it comes to talking with people. And to be honest, this is a generation which tries to solely rely on digital communications, and we are slowly losing this kind of communication skills like talking with people, having the confidence to do so, like having the perseverance to stand in front of something like that in your heat or stuff like that, and go through the endurances and hardships and collect the data. They were saying that these days people don't want to do that. They want to rely solely on secondary methods of market research, like researching to Reddit, or people do not even do that. That's the bare minimum they want to do.
Yeah.
So that's an observation that I got.
I completely agree. What I find so often is that people are so impatient these days. Marketers, entrepreneurs are so impatient. They want to run to Facebook. They want to run to Instagram or YouTube or, email marketing, whatever it is. They want to hurry up and go do the thing, right? Create the graphic, make the post, send the email. They want to do the work quickly and get it over with and do the quote unquote marketing thing. And then what happens is they don't get the results they expected or they wanted. And then they complain that email doesn't work or that, social media doesn't work. And in reality, you have to put in the work. You have to do the due diligence. I think it was Earl Nightingale who once said that if you want to drastically transform your business, the only thing you need to focus on is spending an hour a day truly understanding the problems and the desires of your customers. If you do those two simple things, you will transform your business, because at the end of the day, any and all business is about serving other people, right? We serve them through our products. We serve them through our services. We help them solve problems, or we help them reach goals. We help them fulfill certain desires. And the more in tune you are with those people, the more you truly understand those people, the more successful you will be as an entrepreneur and as a business owner.
True. We need to put on the work, but this is easier said than done, to be honest. So this is the problem I think our generation has. Like, we want to collect all the data digitally, and we find it very hard to communicate with people. And I feel like the social media and digital communications have completely kind of had a negative impact on the way we communicate with people in real life. Like, we feel anxiety, when you are in a social gathering and you're not doing anything. What's the first thing we do? We pull out our phones because we do not know how to handle such kind of things. We just pull it out to make ourselves distracted with something else so that we feel less awkward. We are not used to that kind of awkward silences. That's how bad our communications have become over the years. And when it comes to marketing and business and gathering first-hand data, it's very important to have the communication skills. And the only way you can develop communication skills is by practicing and actually going to people. I mean, books and tactics can help you out, I think, but I think when it comes to developing communications, you have to do it by practicing. And speaking about communications, marketers, it's a primary job of the marketers to communicate in a way that the message reaches to people's heart and it makes them think, it triggers their emotions, right? And it goes deep inside of their brain. And so, like, when we lead our life, we have our own philosophy, ideology, and beliefs and idea about certain kind of things and brands and certain kind of topics. So how much influence do you think marketers have currently about what people believe in and their overall lifestyle they choose to follow?
Yeah, I would say that marketers have probably way more influence than we most of the time want to believe. Like, we are influenced, and marketers have become so astute in psychological manipulation, if you will. I mean, that's a very harsh term, but that's the reality of what it is, right? We are being manipulated by the ads that we see, by the things that we hear, by the things we see when we're out and about, billboards and posters and things like that. And so marketing, again, I said at the very beginning, but marketing really is about psychology. It is about understanding human behavior, the way that people think, the way that people make decisions. And to your point, we are emotional beings. Most of the world makes decisions first based on emotion, and then they justify that with logic. Now, there are some out there who lean way more on the logical side, but emotion is still involved in that process. And so as a marketer, I think that some of the best things that you can do is study human psychology, study the way that people make decisions, study the way that we are influenced, even when we don't realize that we're being influenced. And the more you can engineer those psychological triggers into your marketing, into your sales process, the more success that you will find.
But let's say other marketers are doing the same thing as well, right? So how do you make yourself differentiate from others?
Yeah, what I would say is, for most small business owners, that other companies are not doing that. Again, they are running to Facebook, they're running to whatever social platform or whatever email platform, and they're just trying to, quote unquote, do the marketing things. So if you will take the time to truly understand your customers, you are going to stand out, right? Because you're not going to just go do the same things that everyone else is doing for the sake of doing those things. There's this great exercise that we teach and we talk about often, and it's called the magic journal page. And when we start working with the client, we love to walk them through this exercise. And it's simply this, that you should be so in tune with your customers, your prospective customers, that you could actually write a journal page from their personal journal. So imagine in the morning, your prospective customer, your customer wakes up, they go get their cup of coffee, they're still wiping the sleep from their eyes, they go sit down at their desk or in their chair, they pull out their journal to write in their journal, and they flip open the page to what should be a blank page for today, and somehow, some way, there's words on this page, there's text on this page, and they're wiping their eyes thinking this can't, what's going on here? There's words here. And so they begin to read this page, and someone has written in such detail about their lives, about the way they feel, about their worries, about their doubts, about their frustrations, about their desires, about their dreams, about what's taking place in their family. Someone has written in detail about all of these things taking place. You, as the marketer, that is your job, to be so in tune with your audience that you could write that page on their behalf.
In the current world, I can notice that brands are having a huge cultural influence, and multinationals and brands are trying to get into the culture that they're trying to serve. For example, Coca-Cola, right? So Coca-Cola in many countries are trying to make music that suits according to the customers they want to serve in some kind of particular regions, and people are loving it. Some of they've produced great hits. It's called Coke Studio, and I am seeing brands increasingly do this. They are going with the trends. Let's say there's this company called Fair and Lovely where they are trying to promote more there's this creams where they say that I think it's more prevalent in Asia, but there are creams where they say that if you apply this, your skin will become smoother. But now these days when the young generation are more aware of this kind of racist things, they are going with the flow and no, we are not promoting these things. They're changing their names, they're changing their logo according to suit their customer demographics. And sometimes if the brand is too much powerful, they're not only following what the consumers are doing and what the consumers are thinking about them, but they're also getting to influence the thoughts of the consumers on a large scale. So what's your observation about that, and what are your thoughts on that?
I completely agree. It's taking place in our lives, every single one of us. We often believe that we're not susceptible to being persuaded by outside forces, and yet we are. And that's what makes that so difficult to point out, is because we believe by default that we're not being persuaded, we're not being influenced. And in reality, every single one of us, from every small decision that we make, are being influenced in some way, shape, or form. And there's this really great book that was written, I believe, in the 1950s. It may have been in the 60s. It's called Propaganda. And the entire book by Edward Bernays, I believe, is the author of that book. And he talks about how he was a marketing consultant, and he was brought in by these large companies to help influence entire populations to make decisions to buy certain products. And he talks about all of the ways that they would use what he would call propaganda to influence us. Now, when we hear the word propaganda, we hear that someone's going to try to influence our decisions through marketing tactics or through, messaging, things like that. We immediately get defensive, like, that's tricky, that's subtle, all these things. But he details in his book exactly how it is done. And keep in mind, this was written, 50 years ago, more than 50 years ago. And if they were doing this back then, right, without all the tech, without all the research that can really data mine and get all these specific information on the consumers, imagine what is taking place today in terms of secretly influencing people, even whole societies.
I completely agree with that. And I want to share another story that one of my marketing professors shared during the class. I think it's a story of an energy drink company. So they were trying to tap into a new market, and they were trying to target young people. But for some reason, they were failing to do so. So what they did is their people went to different kinds of parties, and they just threw empty cans of that energy drink. And so when people saw that there are empty cans of this particular energy drink in the dustbin and the waste, people thought, okay, so others are having it. But actually, they were not having it. They just created a fake illusion that people are actually having their drink. But what happened next is many people, out of the fear of missing out, or called FOMO, they actually started to buy the drink just because they thought that others were having the drink, but they did not realize that it was fake, and they were just the cans were just thrown like that to create this kind of fear of missing out, to create this kind of FOMO. And so the way people get manipulated, or I don't think it's always manipulation, because the word manipulation has a negative vibe around it. But I think it would be you can sometimes call it being influenced, or sometimes you can call it being manipulated. I think it depends on the intention, how good or bad the intention is. But that's more on the philosophical side. But that's one example that I can think of right now when it comes to being subtly influenced.
Yeah, that is an absolutely true story. That I believe was Red Bull that did that. That was one of their marketing strategies on how to launch the product. And here's the thing: when people hear you share that story, they think, "Well, I would never be influenced or persuaded in that way." And yet we all are, right? We're all influenced and persuaded by what we see on social, by what we see celebrities wearing, by, the list goes on in all the ways that we are being persuaded, we are being influenced or manipulated, if you want to use that term. And I think from a marketing or business perspective, we've got to understand, where are our customers showing up, and in what ways can we influence their decisions. And I think, like you said, it dives into a philosophical type of question. But if you truly, genuinely believe that your product or service is going to be of more value to your customers than the money they part with, then it's your job, it's your duty to persuade them, to convince them to buy your product or service. So it's your obligation to figure out, where can I show up? How can I show up in ways that would influence other people? And the whole undertone of that is what we often call in marketing social proof, right? We want to know who else is using, who else is doing the thing that we're doing. No one wants to go to the restaurant that nobody goes to, right? You only want to go to the restaurants where there's the line of people, where there's a wait list, where you have to have reservations. And so in many instances, those things are manufactured, and we can manufacture those things into our own business. You know, if you think about it, who would you rather work with? Would you rather work with a marketing company who says, hey, thank you so much for reaching out. We can definitely help grow your business. We can get you started this afternoon at 3:00 with your new marketing campaign. Or would you rather work with a marketing company who says, thank you so much for reaching out. We could definitely help you reach your goals. However, because we are so successful at what we do, our next possible start date isn't until the 1st of December. Now, which of those two in your mind do you think has more credibility? Which of those two do you think actually gets better results for their clients? And so sometimes I think we do ourselves a disservice when we don't clearly think through, how does the words I use, or how do the words I use actually influence? And influence is an interesting thing, right? Because it can influence in two different directions. So if we were to send a proposal to someone, so we send proposals out to people who want to work with us. If we send a proposal out to someone and it looks really tacky and there's typos in the proposal, we are influencing people, but we're influencing them in a way we don't want to influence them. Whereas if our proposal looks crisp and clean and there's no typos and it's really, beautifully designed and well written, we are influencing in a completely different direction. So as entrepreneurs, you have to remember that every single thing that takes place, every interaction that takes place with your business or your organization, people are being influenced. The question is, how are you influencing them?
True. I think it's a very big responsibility when you're trying to influence people, or when you already have some kind of influence. But certain actions, you can use probability to use certain action to predict what kind of outcome certain actions can have on a particular type of audience. But since it's human nature, I think it's very hard to predict accurately what kind of reactions would you see in people, and what kind of outcomes would you see in people. But I think with the increasing pace of technological improvement, it has enabled us to gather more intimate details about people's lives and people's actions and their activities. I mean, I can give you one example of that. Like a few years ago, I discovered this thing that I used to think that when I search something on Google, that's when the Google map records where I'm going. Okay. But when I checked this history option in my Google Maps, I realized I saw this thing that they are not only recording my searches of my location, but they're also recording the places where I'm going, even though I'm not searching for them, even though I do not need the directions of the place that I'm trying to reach. So, and how are they collecting the data? Well, it's all about the terms and conditions that we use to sign up for using that product, and we do not even read those terms and conditions because they are intentionally designed in such a way that people do not want to read them. It looks very clumsy, it looks very unattractive, and it looks very technical. And it's not something unintentional. It's pretty much intentionally that's pretty much something that brands do intentionally so that people do not read. And when we are trying to even if someone reads that, they only have two options. What's the two options? Either you sign up for it or you don't sign up for it. If you don't sign up for it, you will not get any of their services. So people actually have to face a very rigid things. Whether if you're signing up for it, you will get all the facilities. If you don't sign up for it, you will not get any kind of facilities. And it's kind of absurd if you try to read some of the permissions that some of the apps ask for it. Let's say you downloaded a calculator app, and sometimes they'll ask permission for your camera or your call or your call history or your phone dial, phone number. I'm like, man, why do you need such kind of permissions? Why are you taking so much information about me when you're just a calculator? So maybe the people who work with computers and data can answer that question better. But so yeah, that's a scary thing. That's a scary realization. So one thing I would like to talk about is recently, in like the past 2-3 years, we have seen a boom of regular people actually consciously using artificial intelligence. We can, most notably, there's ChatGPT. I personally do use ChatGPT a lot when it comes to generating ideas and consulting about things that I feel confused about or topics that I want to know more about. But there are already like a whole ton of other kinds of artificial intelligence that people are using. And I think this is a trend that will not go quickly, because this is something that people are actually using it in their regular lives, unlike cryptocurrency or NFTs. But a lot of the stuff that's getting made will not be there, but a lot of the stuff will be there because they're actually benefiting people in daily lives. So how has the growth of artificial intelligence impacted marketing, the world of marketing?
Yeah, so artificial intelligence is a super fascinating topic right now. And, it's really, I guess, in the past 12 months or so has really kind of made the headlines, if you will. ChatGPT kind of led the way in terms of the headlines that sparked all the conversations about this going around the world. In terms of the way it affects marketing, what I believe to be true is this, that you can have AI create content for you now, but people can tell the difference. So one of our team members was just recently taking a certification course, and in that course, they gave them 5 or 10 different examples of content for a social media post. And the question was this created by a human, or was it created by artificial intelligence? And they answered the question, and then afterwards it gives a diagnosis, and it basically says that 80% of people can tell the difference between AI generated content versus human written content. And over time, that's going to get better and better, right? As AI improves, it gets better. It's going to have a more natural, more authentic feel. I think the temptation and the danger right now for marketers and for entrepreneurs is to replace human written, human authentic writing with AI writing. And right now, people can tell the difference, right? It's still to the point where 80+% of people can tell the difference in those two things. So what is likely happening in industry, regardless of what industry you're in, is people are allowing AI to write content for their social media, for their emails, for, you name it, for their outbound pieces. And what I would say is, if you want to stand out, don't do it, right? Use AI maybe to improve it. So you write the post, ask them to correct it for typos and grammar, things like that to improve it, but don't allow it to write it from scratch, right? Make it authentic, make it come from your voice. And here's the thing about your voice. Your voice should reflect the desires, the wishes, the goals, the frustrations of your target audience. At this point, AI can't do that because AI has no way of truly understanding your customers. Now, at some point that may change, that will likely be different, right? But for the everyday small business owner, everyday entrepreneur, we don't have access to the tools to do the super deep research on entire customer groups. So when you write from their perspective, when you hold up a mirror to them through your words, you're going to resonate, you're going to connect, and you're going to stand out. So as much as I'm in favor of AI, and as much as I'm in favor of using it to help automate, to help streamline, to help make things more efficient, what I would say is this is an opportunity for you to stand out in your marketplace, to stand out in your industry, because you already know everyone is leaning that direction. Everyone is experimenting with it right now. So if you want to stand out, stay with the human connection at this point. Use it to improve what you're doing, but make sure that you're writing in what I would call the mirror perspective. You want to write in a way that you are holding up a mirror to them and reflecting back to them their true feelings, their true desires.
Previously, there's when businesses tried to grow, they tried to rank on Google's search, right? So the result was like came on top, like the first or second. Other than the advertisements or the sponsored ones, mostly got the most amount of clicks and the highest amount of research which people do is like maybe the like fourth or fifth when it comes to visiting websites and increasing traffic on your website. But when ChatGPT came, it was posing a huge threat to Google's advertisement-based industry, Google's advertisement-based business, because now people did not have to go through like tons of websites to collect or to do the research they want to do, to collect the information that they want to collect the information that they want to collect. But now when ChatGPT came, they were just giving you straightforward answers in the way that you wanted it to convey the answer. So it kind of posed a threat to Google's business, and not only to Google's business, it also posed a threat to the businesses that relied on Google search when it comes to gaining traffic and reaching out to people. So even though Google has its now own ChatGPT version called Bard, and if you search for it, if you search on Google about Bard, and if you like interact with it, you'll understand that Bard gives most of its results based on what's ranking on Google search. If you type things like that, let's say top 25 marketers in the world, they will give you, Bard will give you answers based on what's ranking on Google search. But ChatGPT does not do that. It gives, I don't know how it ranks it, even though ChatGPT is like, I think the knowledge is limited to the end of 2020 or 2021. But when it came to the limelight, it was not, Bard was not there, and it was posing a huge threat to businesses that relied solely on Google search. So what's your take on businesses that were solely relying on ranking on Google search for reaching out to people, for gaining traffics, and from earning through Google search, the advertisement and stuff like that?
My answer to that is this little phrase that I often say inside of our company. And it's this, that if the rate of change inside your business is slower than the rate of change outside your business, it won't be long before you are out of business. So if you aren't making changes rapidly inside your business, then what's going to happen is the marketplace is going to shift. It's going to change so rapidly that you're not going to stay up to the changes, and someone else is, right? A new competitor, or maybe it's an old competitor who is choosing to make those rapid changes inside. So we live in a world now that changes so rapidly, right? The amount of information that is created each and every day is just mind-blowing. And the amount of change that's taking place in the world is mind-blowing. And so as entrepreneurs, not to discourage people or to add one more thing to your plate, but you have to remember that at the end of the day, whoever serves the customer best is going to win. Whoever serves the customer best is going to win. And so, despite all of these changes taking place outside of your business, you have to ensure that you are aligned and that you are ensuring that you are changing in ways that are meaningful to your customer. That is it. We often, as you grow a business, as you scale a business, what happens is you begin developing systems and processes. And those systems and processes, if you aren't careful, they become systems and processes that streamline the efficiencies inside your organization. Rarely do we as entrepreneurs think through the systems and processes from the perspective of our customer. In other words, how is this system or process going to impact, going to affect my customer? And if we are wise, what we will do is we ensure that our systems and processes are geared to our customers. In other words, we're engineering them to better serve them, not to better serve ourselves. Because at the end of the day, whoever serves those customers the best is going to win. You can throw whatever strategy created by whoever the wisest, smartest, best guru in the world, that goes out the door if someone else comes in and serves your customer base better than you do.
If the external environment is moving very fast and you try to keep up with it, sometimes it can hamper your company culture because you will not know what you're up to the next month or the next year because times are changing. So how do you preserve the culture of your company, the rituals of your company, the basics of your company while adapting to the new external changes?
Yeah, it's a great question. What I would say is this, that too often our companies and the cultures our companies are built on are all based on tactics. In other words, we do social media marketing, or we do Facebook marketing, or we do SEO, right? They're very tactical things. Whereas instead, from our perspective, if we were to step back and say, what do we exist for? Well, we exist to help entrepreneurs sleep better at night. Okay, that's a very high level. That's a very strategic thing. Therefore, what are all the ways that we can help that or make that come true? What are all the things that we could do to help our entrepreneur clients sleep better at night? So we become platform or marketing tactic agnostic. In other words, we don't care what the tactic is. We don't care what the platform is. What we care about are the strategies. What we care about are the frameworks that we're putting in place to serve that end goal of helping our clients sleep better at night. And so that is the answer for entrepreneurs when it comes to thinking about your culture and keeping up with the rate of change and all of those things, is that if you are solely based on tactics, if everything you do in your organization is based on the tactical shifts and the tactical changes, you are going to wear yourself out, you're going to wear your team out, and there's no way you're going to be able to catch up. However, if you stay focused on the big picture, if you stay focused on the vision, the mission, and the overarching strategy for your organization and the people you serve, then you can adapt and you can move freely and you can flow within that framework to accomplish that vision.
It's a very tough job to do, to be honest. And to be honest, I think people need to try to do this, and just talking about it and reading about it will not be enough. So I read this theory about when it comes to like changes in the company culture, and there's this theory is about the types of companies and what kind of changes do they make and what their culture is. So there's at the top, there's this company that's like up to the mark when it comes to the technological changes, and they sometimes often these companies like pioneer the changes. They're the market leaders, they lead the changes in the industry. Then comes the people, the company that is like they're not either like super enthusiastic about it, nor do they change anything about it. And at the last comes the people the company who does not change anything. They just stick to what they were originally built upon, and they do not change the company culture. They do not change the rituals or the tactics to suit what's happening currently in the world. And there has to be, I think, depending on what kind of industry you're working on, there has to be some kind of balance. You have to understand that. For example, if you were like only chasing trends and only chasing what's happening around the world, then you will, I don't think you'll have any core business model or any core philosophy, which will make it harder for people to follow you and to know what's your actual work. On the other hand, if you do not follow anything, if you do not follow the new changes, the new developments that are happening, irrespective not only in the technological world but in the political world, in the social world, whatever is happening, then it will be very, very hard for you to stay relevant in this world where people's attention spans are getting shorter. So I think depending on which industry you're in, you have to do some kind of market research and you'll have to find out what's your sweet spot.
Yeah, there's this great story here in the States. The most winning basketball coach in collegiate, so college sports, was a coach named Coach John Wooden. And Coach John Wooden, he won 10 national championships. So in other words, out of all of men's college basketball, it's the Super Bowl, right? It's the biggest thing. And so he won 10 national championships over a 12-year span with UCLA. So the question became, how did he do this? How did he win so many college basketball championships back to back like that? And although his answer is a bit more detailed and a bit longer than this, the answer was simply this. He focused on the fundamentals. So you think about it, you win a few national championships, and every high school student who's a great basketball star now wants to come and be a part of your program, right? They want to come to your university. They want to come play for you because your team's winning national championships. And so he had literally the pick of all the best high school basketball players from the country that came to his team. And the very first session, the very first lesson, the very first practice he brought them through, he'd bring all of these top-rated high school basketball players, plus his returning players, right, to the college team. He would sit them all down in the locker room. He would pull out a pair of socks and he would show them how to put on their socks. And the reason he did this, he said, if you don't know how to put on your socks properly, you're going to get a blister. If you get a blister, you're going to miss practice. If you miss a practice, you're not going to be able to play. And if you can't play, you could cause us to lose a game. The next thing he showed them how to do was tie your shoe. He said, I'm going to teach you how to properly tie your shoe so that in the middle of the game, in the middle of the quote unquote battle for the leaderboard, that your shoe doesn't come untied and you cost us a valuable timeout that we have to waste so that you can stop and tie your shoe. So you think about this. Here you've got the most winning basketball coach in basketball history, college basketball history. And he's taking the best athletes and he is starting with the fundamentals. He's starting with some very basic things that for most of us, we would say that's crazy. Like, why are you starting with such fundamental, elementary things, right? You've got these people who know all these basketball techniques, all the drills, all the things, and yet you're starting with these basic fundamental things. And here's what I believe to be true in business and in life, that those who ultimately succeed, those who become the champions, it's not about these grand gestures. It's not about, jumping in and timing the market just right. It's about those people who learn to embrace and master the fundamental basics of whatever your craft is.
True. And I think you need to practice so much that the fundamentals become so much ingrained in your muscle memory that the next time you come to perform on the field or in whatever work you're doing, it just comes naturally within you. And the more natural it is to you, the more better you will be in whatever skills that you are trying to acquire and whatever industry that you're working in. So let's say I'm a content creator, right? I try to study and create content on like side by side. So if in content creation, when you're not, when you're the solo creator, you have to edit your stuff, you have to plan out your stuff, you have to do basically all of the things together alone. So if you, let's say you do not know how to edit, and you're trying to learn from YouTube and some kind of skills how to hook your audience and how to gain more traction, what kind of editing style is trending right now. So if you keep on doing it and doing it and doing it, and if you keep on posting regularly, the basics will come naturally within you. And the more you practice, the more it becomes so much ingrained into you that the more you do it, the faster you become and the better you become. And when you're talking about the shoe tying thing that he was teaching the students or the other athletes how to tie the shoe, I got reminded of this great marketing campaign from Puma when Pele was wearing the shoe. When Pele was wearing the shoe, and they just, he just went on to the ground and he was just tying the shoe, and the cameras and the TVs were all focused on the shoe that he was wearing, and people at that time didn't realize that he was actually partnering up with Puma, and that was one of Puma's greatest marketing campaigns with Pele. So I got to know about this when Pele died, and people were talking about his achievements and his campaigns and his money and stuff like that when people suddenly became interested in him. So yeah, that's a random story that I could think about when you're talking about tying the shoelace. So what are your thoughts on that marketing campaign?
Yeah, I would say, number one, how much of that was actually engineered, right? Obviously the footage had to be captured. The video had to exist. So I'm assuming that was during an actual game that took place. And I would be curious to know if that was actually intentional, right? If that had been pre-planned, that he wouldn't tie his shoe properly, wouldn't tie it correctly, because that happening at that level, professional level, doesn't happen very often, right? Shoe coming untied is not like you see it happen very often. And so I would jump all the way back to kind of where we started the conversation about influence and propaganda. And, sometimes I think that things take place that we don't even realize. So maybe he and Puma had this conversation that he was not going to tie his shoe well, and that, people would film him stopping to tie his shoe, and that would become a campaign. Again, I'm 100% speculation. It could be all natural, but again, it goes to show the brilliance of association, right? So you take someone who's a celebrity, who's a star, and you associate them with your brand, with your product. And again, it goes back to that influence. We, by default, are influenced by people who are authority figures, who are celebrities, and even by our peers around us, which is why there's this rise in micro influencers around the world, because we are all influenced.
True. And I was thinking about coming to the topic because with the growth of social media and content creators, a lot of companies are sponsoring influencers to tap into new markets and to advertise their products, to market their products. So one of the revenue streams of a lot of content creators is sponsors. They just read out some kind of ad, or they just naturally blend in some kind of ad into their content, and this reaches the brand to get a lot of more exposure and also tap into the new kind of audience, their target audience's mind that the influencer has. And and this kind of economy is called the creator economy, and the brands are playing a big role in this kind of creator economy. So what's your thoughts about this creator economy and influencers becoming more popular, and brands collaborating with influencers to reach out to people?
I think that where we are right now is a very interesting period for influence, and particularly for micro influencers. And what I mean by that is that, originally when this started, within the last few years, people, the consumers, the people we interact with on social media, we didn't necessarily know that they were being paid or that they were being given a bunch of swag, right? Free gear, free whatever, in order to talk about it. Now that that's become very public knowledge that this is taking place, and that it's the rise of the micro influencer, what I believe is going to happen over time is that we are going to become more distrusting of micro influencers, because we know that for the most part, they are being influence themselves, right? They are being paid, they're being motivated to talk positively about the product or service. So one of the interesting things that I think you will note now is that a lot of content creators, micro influencers, what they will say at the beginning of their video or on their reviews or whatever it may be, is they will say that I was not paid to do this review, or I was not incentivized to do this review, because what they're trying to do is they're trying to say, hey, look, you should trust me. I'm not being manipulated or incentivized by someone else to talk favorably or negatively about this product. And that is where I think there's going to be a shift. There's going to be a transition, and it's coming, right? There's already hints of it. So if you watch some of your favorite influencers, gurus, celebrities that you follow, you will notice a lot of them are going to start using the term or using the phrase, I haven't been paid to do this endorsement. I'm not spoken to the company. It's just a product I love or a service I love. And again, what they're trying to get back to is they want to reestablish trust with their audience. Because at the end of the day, it runs into the same dilemma that we as entrepreneurs and marketers run into, and that is that people don't trust us. People simply don't trust us. And the reason is this: they know that we have a vested interest. They know that we will benefit from persuading them, from convincing them to take action. And so we as marketers must understand that. We must then utilize other people. We must create social proof from other people to talk favorably about us. And the absolute best way to do that is from our existing actual customers, the people who've experienced our products or services. Those are the ones who can have the most impact on prospective clients for us.
If people knowing and being more aware of the fact that influencers are getting paid to make certain kind of endorsements or advertisements, then what about big celebrities? Because people already know about the big celebrities, that they're getting paid huge amounts to do such kind of promotions, but the companies are still paying celebrities to promote their product. So if knowing the fact that the companies are paying celebrities or influencers to advertise that product, and if it decreases that trust, then why are still companies paying celebrities to advertise or market their products?
Because it still works. Right? It still works because we as consumers, we are still manipulated. We are still influenced by the fact that other people are talking favorably about this product or service. And in the back of our minds, we know that the bigger the celebrity is, we know that they're not going to want to tie their name, their quote unquote brand, to a product or to a service that makes them look bad. So we understand that if they're going to speak for Puma shoes, that they believe that the shoes are actually really good, or else they wouldn't put their name, they wouldn't associate with that brand. And so we, at that level, understand that they have a lot to risk. If you put your name beside a product that hurts people, that's terrible quality, that falls apart, any of those things, it's not only going to hurt the brand, the product, but it's going to hurt your name, because now your name is less valuable next time in terms of influence. So at the bigger level, the higher level with celebrities, they are way more cautious. They are way more selective. At the micro influencer level, we have to assume that they're doing it for the money, whereas the celebrities don't necessarily, quote unquote, need the money. So mentally, we process all of that in the back of our heads. We know that the celebrity is probably getting millions of dollars to endorse or to promote or to wear the product or service, but we know they're not going to put their name on something that's poor quality. On the other end of that spectrum, the micro influencer who maybe only has 100,000 followers or 500,000 followers on social media, those people, we know that they're way more incentivized by the money, and they have less to risk with their name than a big name celebrity.
True, big name celebrities can have more control and say as to how they want to promote the brand, whereas small influencers, micro influencers, do not have that. I've heard experiences with sponsorships of many influencers, and they tell you how to talk about their product, how to blend in the advertisement into their content, And the creator has to face this dilemma with keeping the originality of the content and also promoting the advertisers, promoting the sponsors, because when it comes to the digital media, you can just click off the video anytime you want to, if you are not feeling interested about it. So, and what it does is it hurts the audience retention graph, and that hurts the performance of the video. So anytime you see like, oh, there's an ad, you just want to click it off, right? Unless the video is really good. So the creators have to face this dilemma. And I've heard that sponsors literally tell you as to how they want to be advertised in the video, and depending on how big of a creator you are, you get to have some kind of say, or sometimes you do not get to have any kind of say, depending on how good the sponsor is or how friendly the sponsor is with the creator, right? So I think the creator economy is still getting bigger and bigger because a lot of places still do not have internet access, and as they get developed around the world, as more people get connected with the internet, they will have more content creators. We will have more content creators. We will see the rise of different kinds of content creators, and the consumers of content, I think, will increase a lot. And depending on the future, what turns into the future, because people are trying to improve the internet quality, and Elon Musk has launched this new thing called Starlink. It's not new anymore, and what it aims to do is it aims to provide high-speed internet connection in areas that are remote. And so if it becomes successful, I think a lot of people will get connected to the internet, and that will open up a lot of opportunities for content creators and business people. So, I've introduced this gaming thing in my show. So in this game, you have to guess the name of the brand of the company or the person. And how will you guess that? I will give you clues, and based on the clues, you'll have to guess the name. And if my guest Wayne successfully names or guesses the name, then you will get to have a drink of water. You'll get to have some water as his reward. And if he fails, then I will succeed, and then I will have to drink some water. I'll get to drink some water. I'm pretty sure Wayne is thirsty, and I'm thirsty kind of because we've been talking for a long time. So here goes the first clue, Wayne. So guess the company. This company has over $10 trillion under asset management, and it's a very big company, and the revenue is more than the GDP of some countries. That's the first clue.
Should I make a guess yet?
Can you you have to guess, you have to make guess based on the clues.
All right. First guess would be Apple.
Nice guess, but no, it's not Apple. It's not a tech company.
Right.
Any other guess?
Let's see. Read the clue one more time.
This company had over $10 trillion under asset management, and it's worth more than the GDP of a lot of countries.
It sounds like a banking or an investment company, possibly.
Yeah, you're close. Okay, let me go to the next clue. It holds a major power in stock market, bond market, and other financial markets.
Is it BlackRock?
You're absolutely right. I'm not sure whether you can see it or not. So it's BlackRock. So Wayne, you get to have some water right now.
Only 2 clues in.
Yeah, you did great. So this is a person, so guess the person. This man has been married thrice, and has at least 4 ex-girlfriends with 10 children with three different mothers.
Elon Musk.
Oh my God! How did you guess that?
I just read the new
I never
biography.
thought that you would be able to guess.
Yeah, I just read the new biography about him. It's really good.
Whoa! Yeah, that was quick. This is Elon Musk.
Yep.
Really good. You're playing this game quite well. I never thought that anyone would be able to guess. Okay. So this man became a billionaire when he was only 23 years old.
It's the only clue I get.
You have to make more guesses, and I'll say okay, this is right or wrong.
Mark Zuckerberg.
You must be kidding me. Here you go. Am I still frozen? Can you see me? How did you do that?
I wasn't 100% sure. I knew he became super early, but I just couldn't remember the exact age. But yeah.
That's brilliant. Okay, so here is the last name I have. Guess the brand. The logo of this billion-dollar company was designed for just $35.
Nike.
Brilliant.
Hey,
here you go. This is the logo.
yep. That's another great book. Shoe Dog.
Brilliant. I don't know. Yeah. Phil Knight. He's a great person. And many people take entrepreneurial inspirations from him.
So I highly recommend his book, Shoe Dog.
Some other interesting facts. Oh, what do you like most about Shoe Dog?
Just the sheer, when we look at someone like Phil Knight or like Nike, we just see this, huge rise to success, and we don't realize all of the little details and all of the ridiculous hard work that went into actually building that brand, and how they were so close on so many occasions to not even existing. How Phil Knight literally risked everything, right? He bet everything on the success of Nike. And so I remember when reading that book, just thinking, it's not surprising that he was successful. He was willing to go all in. And so many times for so many of us, we only dabble, right? We dabble in our businesses. We are not willing to go all in like he was. And you read the book and you'll just see, there's the stories in the book about the crazy things they did to try to make Nike actually succeed. Yeah. So, for so many, particularly here in the US, this may not be true around the world, but entrepreneurship has become kind of a buzzword. It's become the cool thing to do, right? To be an entrepreneur, to start your own business, to do your side hustle, all of these terms. And the problem is, it's never been easier to start a business, right? Never in the history of the world has it been easier than today to start a business. Thanks to technology, thanks to, the global economy that we live in, almost anyone with an internet connection can have a business up and running literally within a day or two. But the problem with that, so on the one hand, we got the beauty of the easy factor, but the other side of that is it creates a bunch of people who are only in it until things get tough. In other words, when the road gets tough, when you have to decide to, sell your new vehicle so that you can invest the money into the business, or when you have to decide to sell your home to go rent somewhere to be able to invest into your business, or when you have to decide not to go on vacation for 10 years because you are investing in your business, when you have to choose to work every single night and every single weekend for years on end, most people are simply unwilling to do that. And they dabble. So they get started, they try something, they quote unquote do the hard stuff, which, it's not really that difficult what they're doing. They're not sacrificing. They're working more. They're trying to do things. But what I find is we live in this world, particularly here in the US. I'll speak from that culture because that's what I'm, in every single day. It's that all of these gurus are out there talking about success and how, you need to study, you need to learn more, you need to grow, and you need to, launch your business, pursue your dreams. And I believe in all of those things. But the problem is they aren't also talking about the realities of the harshness of the business world and the harshness of the decisions that you will have to make between sacrificing for your family or sacrificing for your business, sacrificing for your personal freedom or sacrificing for your business. They paint the picture of business as, fairy tale and rainbows everywhere. And in reality, that's not the case for any successful business owner that I know. You talked about Elon Musk. That was one of the quiz questions. Read his biography. Look at what he sacrificed. Look at what he has given up to make his company successful. There are so few people who are willing to do what he's done in order to get what he's gotten. Mark Zuckerberg's another one. Look at his life. People think, oh, he's got it easy, all these things, but look at what he put in to get to the place that he is today. And so that's my whole spiel. I think sometimes that I'm all for entrepreneurship. I'm all for encouraging people to pursue business, to pursue their dreams. But all dreams come with a cost. The question is, are you willing to pay the price?
Well said. And talking about Elon Musk is a man who has built two different companies on completely two different industries. I mean, he has many companies, but the most renowned ones are Tesla and Spacex, and one is in the car industry and one is the rocket industry. And both of these companies completely revolutionized the way the particular industries work. For example, electric cars were a thing a long time ago, but the gasoline cars came and the competition, they could not just go up with the competition because at that time the cars were simply not that good. The electric cars were simply not that good, and gasoline cars were gaining a lot of popularity. So Tesla, what they did is they made electric cars popular, they made electric cars trendy, they made electric cars good looking. And so the first product they launched was the Tesla Roadster. So they launched the Tesla Roadster. It was very expensive at that time, but it was fancy. It was great looking. It was something that was the world of the media's attention. And so when the other car companies saw that people are moving more towards EV, electric vehicles, they also started to include some of the electric vehicle features in their car line. And that was first inspired by Tesla, the car company. Tesla is named after a famous scientist called Nikola Tesla. A lot of people are not aware of it. And he was a brilliant scientist. And unfortunately, some of his inventions did not come to the limelight. But Nikola Tesla is the pioneer of the lot of modern inventions that we have currently. And speaking of Tesla, a lot of people think that Elon Musk is the founder of Tesla, but actually he's not. And that's a controversial thing. But he took over the company from two guys. I do not remember the name right now. So yeah, and he is a business person. He also has an engineering degree, but he completely changed the car industry's approach towards electric vehicles, and also did the similar kind of thing in the rocket industry. What used to happen in the rocket industry is you just shoot up a rocket for once, and boom, it's gone. You cannot reuse it. And in many of his interviews, he gave this example that imagine that you can use a car only for once, and boom, you're done. It would make traveling very, very expensive. So why did we accept that when it comes to rocket industries? And traditional rockets had like different kinds of suppliers. So the suppliers kept on adding their profit margin. So what it did is when it comes to the final output of the rocket, it made the rocket very expensive. And since you're using the rocket only for once, it's not possible to achieve economies of scale. But when it comes to reusable rockets, you're using the rockets over and over again. It helped SpaceX and the rocket industry achieve economies of scale when it comes to rocket launches. And that's why SpaceX rocket launches are much more cheaper than other kinds of traditional rocket launches. And if you know the story behind SpaceX, so after selling, I think, a PayPal, he got $180 million, and he divided that $180 million. Some sources will give different numbers, but it's like approximately $180 million. And he then divided the amount of money into two different sectors. So one it's on Tesla and one is on SpaceX. I think $110 million was on SpaceX and $70 million was on Tesla. So Tesla did its launches, and I think they did 3 launches, and all of them failed. Okay, and all of them failed, and he had barely any money to make another launch. And on top of that, renowned space people, renowned astronauts like Neil Armstrong were saying that what he was doing is something crazy. And that broke his heart. There's this famous interview of him where he's like literally about to cry, and it's pretty much understandable because you are putting in so much heart and soul into what you're doing, and one of your idols, one of the superstars, you can say, is saying that you will not succeed in what you're doing. It does break your heart. And so he scraped up like the last bits of money he had, and he finally put in on the last launch of what SpaceX had in terms of funding. So if that launch failed, SpaceX wouldn't have existed. The rocket launches wouldn't have been cheaper, and it would have made space exploration a lot more tough for humanity. And fortunately, the last launch, he succeeded on that, and that helped him to gain a lot more fundings, and that helped SpaceX from getting bankrupt. So he's now known for a lot of negative stuff and a lot of stuff like memes and stuff like that. But there's this thing which he has and which he has done in his life, which a lot of people will not be able to do.
Yep. I completely agree.
So I'm pretty sure a lot of this stuff is mentioned on his biography as well. I think, is it the biography from Ashley Vance?
No, it's a new one that just recently came out.
Or is it the new one?
Walter Isaacson is the author.
Oh, I'm not aware of that. Yep. So yeah, I think Elon Musk can be a good inspiration when it comes to work ethics. People can bring out conspiracy stuff, but I'm not sure about those kind of information about him. I just said what's out there about, and what's like the information that's known about Elon Musk. So yeah, that was like pretty deep thing to talk about. So coming back to marketing, and people say, and I've read this report that Tesla spends $0 in marketing. I think that was up until like 2018 or 2019. Recently, I think they started to spend some kind of money on marketing. But the reason they did not need to spend any kind of extra dollar in marketing is because they focused on marketing that's not traditional. And that is word of mouth marketing. And when you have someone like Elon Musk as your CEO, you do not need any kind of marketing, right? So I don't think there's like any other, like as much as passionate group of people when it comes to other, like vocally passionate group of people when it comes to other car brands. But I have seen a lot of passionate people like making content and talking about Tesla and its new features and its self-driving car, self-driving abilities, and how it's like pioneering both the industry of car and automobile vehicles and technology. So I've always said this, but I will still say it now. I think word of mouth is a very powerful method of marketing. It does not cost you anything when it comes to marketing. What it costs is you need to develop your product or your service so well that it gains so much satisfaction of your customers that they are so happy about it, and they're like, wow, I'm very happy about it. And they feel so passionate about the product or the company that they automatically like recommend it to their people, to their friends, to their peers. And what else do you need if you are an influencer and you are like willingly talking about that product or service, and and it's an authentic review, and people will automatically gravitate towards that when it comes to like paying people to talk about it.
Yeah.
What's your thought on that?
I agree. I think there's a great quote that says that advertising is the price you pay for being boring. Advertising is the price you pay for being boring. So for Elon Musk, the car was not boring. SpaceX was not boring. The more we can get people talking, the better. And Elon Musk is a master at getting people to talk. So Tesla just did, at the time we're recording this, they just did their Q3 earnings call for Tesla just yesterday, or maybe Wednesday, but in the past couple of days. And Elon Musk is a master. If you go listen to their earnings call, which you can find on the Tesla YouTube channel, he is a master at leaning into the future and giving people something interesting, something exciting to think about and to talk about, which is why almost every time Elon Musk says anything, that people talk about it. There's headlines about it. There's all kinds of, in some cases, controversy around it. And I sincerely believe that he does a lot of the things that he does, even the controversial things, on purpose to keep people talking about him and to keep people talking about Tesla and SpaceX. And, there's that old adage that says, there's no such thing as bad publicity. In other words, when people are talking about you, even if it's in a negative light, they are still talking about you. You are still front and center in their minds and in their brains. So I think for us as marketers, as entrepreneurs, it's important to remember that, our default is to typically go to things that traditional marketing says we should do. But in reality, if we can do things that are outrageous, things that are outlandish, things that get people to talk, that will substitute for the marketing dollars that we'd have to spend on doing those things.
As a marketeer, like the strategies and stuff that people use to stay relevant and to advertise their product or service or to stay mainstream in the media. So from the knowledge that you have, like from that perspective, how do you see Elon Musk from that perspective?
Yeah, again, I think he's brilliant at capturing intention, whether it's positive, whether it's negative. He gives people something to talk about. He creates a vision for the future that is so crazy, that is so out there, that it forces people to talk about it. And he doesn't just come up with, completely random ideas. These are things that he genuinely believes in. So, occupying Mars, building a colony on Mars, he genuinely believes in that. That is the vision that he's pursuing. And he has the smarts, he has the engineering knowledge, he has the physics knowledge, he has the knowledge to back up his claims, right? To show how it's possible, to show that it can be done. He doesn't ever claim that it's going to be easy to be done, but he claims that it can be done, and he's trying to pioneer and lead that direction.
What are some of the strategies that you see Elon Musk using to stay relevant and to stay on the headlines, which other people normally miss out?
Yeah, I would say number one is to lean into the future of your industry. So if you want to capture attention for whatever it is that you do, lean into the future of that. So right now, one of the things that a lot of people may or may not know about is that everyone's probably heard of him talking about building self-driving cars, fully autonomous cars that can drive themselves. So you get in and you program where you want to go, and it will drive you to that location. They're using that same technology, that same AI, to build Optimus, which is a humanoid robot. And this is actually being developed and built by Tesla. And so he's using existing technology that is being used for one purpose to build another super fascinating, super controversial, and super, kind of jarring conversation around their technology that they're developing. So whenever you hear and see him talk about this humanoid robot, he talks about it completely different than the way, say, Boston Dynamic talks about their robots that they've developed over the years. Elon's talking about using these humanoid robots to do tasks that humans don't want to do in the future, to do jobs that are very menial. In other words, repetitive tasks where it's pulling things off an assembly line over and over and over again, day in and day out, right? So he's very brilliant at that. And we, as small business owners, can do the same thing. But we can't do those same things if we're so bogged down in the day-to-day. If we're so bogged down in just trying to copy what our competitors are doing, we can't think strategically, we can't think long-term, and we can't cast the vision for the future.
True. Very true. The future is technology, and the people who will lead the way, who will get to define that, who will get to define the narrative of it, will ultimately get the first movers advantage. First movers, because if you're the first mover, of course, you will have to do something new. And when you're trying to do something new, it's obviously risky because the industry is not yet tested. It might become successful, it might not become successful. You do not have any example to learn lessons from. If you are the first, if you are moving into the new industry and you're the one of the first people. But on the other hand, if the industry becomes successful, boom, it's game over for you, or you are going to become successful. You see a lot of social media companies, you see a lot of YouTubers, you see a lot of new things that you're like having right now. The people who successfully made in as a first mover, they are successful right now. They're financially successful and they're coming to the headlines. And a lot of them are not coming to the headlines, but they're reaping the benefits of being one of the first movers into a very successful industry. So talking about being the first movers, what are some of the growing trends that you see will flourish in the marketing world or in the business world in general within the next 5 to 10 years that you want people to watch out for, so that if they move into those industries or do those kind of stuff, they will get the benefit of being the successful first mover? What are some of the trends that you're seeing right now?
Yeah, first of all, I would say that I'm not a huge believer in first mover advantage, right? I know the concept. I've actually, I think, read the book by that same title. Maybe it's the book. I've read a book about that topic. Here's what's interesting. So Facebook did not have first mover advantage. MySpace led the way in that industry. Facebook came along after that. Tesla was not the first electric car company. As a matter of fact, Toyota had the Prius, which was a hybrid version. Chevy, I believe Chevrolet had a fully electric car, maybe, prior to that. So they were not the first company who used solely electric battery-powered vehicles. They came in and they positioned themselves in a different way, leveraging existing technologies and improving upon those technologies. There's a great quote that is, "Pioneers starve, settlers don't. Settlers eat well." So in other words, pioneers who go out and explore the new territory, who forge the way for other people, they have the very difficult path to go down. In other words, they're having to cut the trails. They're having to do all the things, clear the brush, all the stuff to make way. The next people who come in and who leverage the path that they've created, who leverage the technology they created, have a far better advantage if they're able to capitalize on it. The problem is we don't often stake our claim in those areas. In other words, we are so busy trying to serve everyone that we end up serving No one. So what Elon Musk did with Tesla was he came out with a roadster that was a stark contrast. He talks about it, a stark contrast to what people believed electric cars could be. So in the past, electric cars were ugly. They were inefficient with maybe like 100-mile range, right? He came out with the Roadster, which was beautiful, which was sleek, which was fast, which was cool, which was hip. It was all these things that electric cars were not. When you think about SpaceX and what he did there, again, he did not invent the rocket. He did not invent sending stuff to Mars or to space, right? Into orbit. He didn't invent those things. What he did was he leveraged those things and he created a unique proposition upon those things, which you already talked about, which was the reusable rocket, right? So he leveraged existing things that already existed to create those things. So for all of us, I think the important thing is we spend so much time sometimes trying to think of how do I create something new? How do I create something unique? How do I create something completely different? And in reality, I think if we would just get in tune with the people that we want to serve and understand how we can better serve them, then we can leverage existing things that already exist and create unique solutions, unique products, unique services that serve them and serve them extremely well.
Why don't you exactly believe in the first mover's advantage?
Yeah, I think it's a great quote. I think it's a great idea, but I don't believe it's actual factual. I believe, just from those two examples, Tesla, SpaceX, Facebook would be another example. Coca-Cola, if you go look at the history of carbonated beverages, they were not the original inventor of the carbonated beverage. It's true throughout. So you look at Microsoft. Microsoft did not invent the operating system. They took it from IBM, I believe it was. Again, so IBM was the pioneer. Same thing with the mouse. Steve Jobs was the one that came along and took the mouse technology, the user interface technology, the clickable screen technology that was developed by someone else who was the first mover, and they adapted it. They improved upon it. So I'm not a huge believer in it. I think it sounds great, but I think oftentimes it's such a distraction because we don't believe that we can actually create something completely unique or something completely new. When in reality, I think we can piece together various things and put them in combinations that are differently, that position ourselves and anchor ourselves as the only logical solution to other people.
Interesting perspective. And this is what you get when you talk with a lot of people. You get different perspectives. I never really thought about it, about first mover's advantage from this perspective. You gave really good examples. I need to think about it more after the podcast. So what are the trends that you think will dominate the world, in the business world, in the next 5 to 10 years?
Yep,
things that we can look out for.
Yeah, absolutely. So I do have to run after this answer. But here's what I would say. I would say that, the trends are this. So everything seems to be moving more AI, more tech-based, more automation, more, just where technology can make our lives so much easier and do so many things for us as entrepreneurs and just in our personal lives as well. But where I think the tremendous opportunity comes for those who are willing to take this risk and this chance is to move the opposite direction, to make it less about automation, less about AI, less about all those things, and go back to the core basics. So we live in a world right now, I think it was drawing a blank on the name of the author, but he talked about the flat world, meaning that technology has flattened the world so that we can do this podcast and we're on different sides of the world right now, where I can have a store that sells stuff anywhere across the planet, right? That I can have stuff delivered anywhere across the planet, that we live now in this global economy where I really believe the future is actually going to lean. It's going to be a shift back the other direction where we crave local, real experiences. We live now in what I would say is the experience economy. It's no longer the material economy. It's no longer the consumer economy. It's the experience economy. So here in the US this year, for the first time ever this summer, domestic travel was down. So domestic airline travel was down. International travel was up significantly, record-setting years for all the airlines here in the US for international travel, international flights. That just goes to show that people are craving experiences. They're craving connecting with other people, experiencing new things. So all of that to say, as entrepreneurs, if we can look for ways to build communities around connection, around people who are like-minded, and around experiences that are shared, I believe you can build businesses that will survive and thrive over the next few years.
Well, that's very well said. Any last message for people who want to build a career in marketing?
Yeah, I would say if you want to build a career in marketing, what I would recommend doing is kind of where we began the whole conversation. Lean into the discomfort of having real conversations with real people. Learn to understand and observe people on how they make buying decisions, why they make buying decisions, and when they make buying decisions. The more in tune you are with those things, the better you will be at becoming a marketer.
Thank you, Wayne, for once again coming to my show and sharing such valuable knowledge and experience from your marketing world.
Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you.